Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Saturday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing awesome out there this morning and having a wonderful start to your day and a great beginning to your weekend out there so far. Here to bring the latest information that we got on what's going on with many things. This video will be jam-packed full of information, but of course the first thing we will go over is the latest on the tropics. We'll speak on what's going on out there in the Atlantic right at this moment. We'll go over the latest information from the National Hurricane Center. We'll talk about the latest model guidance from overnight into this morning, the Euro, GFS, Icon, Canadian, the ensemble guidance. We'll speak on sea surface temperatures, the upper wind pattern, those two things that could support gradual strengthening with this system over the next 7 to even 10 days. Yes, there's the potential we will be talking about this for at minimum the first 1/3 of September, maybe the entire first half of September if this develops into an actual tropical cyclone. So that's the key here, is the beginning stages of this, which will be over the next few days. And then we'll talk about steering currents. We're not going to dive too deep into that, and I say that, and I probably will anyways, but I want to talk about what could drive this one way or the other. So we'll speak on all that, and of course I'm not going to leave you guys hanging on what's going to happen weather-wise across the entire lower 48 for your Saturday. I've got you covered there, and timestamps will be up throughout the entire video for you folks to jump ahead to certain portions of the video that you want to watch. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. It helps to get these videos out there. And more importantly, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, please put those in the comments below. I am behind on comments, about 4 videos behind after this video. So trust me, I go back and read every single one of the comments. It doesn't matter how big the video is, how many views. If it has 200 comments, I'll read every single one, and I'll at least try to acknowledge them, especially if they're prayer requests. Just want to let you guys know I am praying over it. And more importantly, there's other people cruising through the comments too and praying over your prayer requests too. So if it's unspoken, put that also. So with all that being said, let's get going this morning. So let's talk about what's going on out there right now. I'm going to circle a couple things. Hopefully this is going to work for us. Let's go with yellow. Yeah, let's go with yellow. So this is our main area of interest right here. And I know this doesn't look super impressive, but you notice kind of the areas of orange, reds, and blacks popping up right into here. That's just shower and storm activity, convection out here in the Atlantic that continues to fire just out here in the tropical Atlantic. Now we do have this wave out here too, and I'm just going to circle a very large area because even though there's nothing going on right here, I mean, this entire area can fire convection at any time. And this is where we have a wave that has a chance to develop also. And 90% of this video is going to be discussing this first circled area, but I do want to note, and I'll show you here in a second, there's other areas to watch too. And speaking of other areas to watch, there's an area closer to home that continues and has been over the last week just about bringing showers and storms and just tropical moisture along the Louisiana and portions of the Texas coastline. And it will continue to be the common theme over the weekend. But this circled area also has a chance to develop. Now you ask, what does that mean, develop? Anytime I say it has a chance to develop, I mean develop into a tropical depression or a named storm, basically into a tropical cyclone. And for it to be dubbed a tropical cyclone, named a tropical cyclone, it has to have a defined low-level circulation. That makes it a cyclone or a depression. So these are all the pieces in the puzzle out here in the Atlantic and what we're watching. We get this all back off your screen. And we look at the latest from the National Hurricane Center. Let's see if we have a new update. Man, we do not. I might have to go back to this. But this is the latest information from around 2 a.m. Eastern Time. There's another update from the National Hurricane Center that will quite literally drop at any moment. But the latest info we got is this main area of interest, which is where this orange X is right here currently, has a 50% chance to develop in this orange area right here within the next 7 days. It went from 50 to 40 yesterday. Now it's back up to 50. It could drop back to 40. That does not mean that this just flat out isn't going to develop. It just means that it's slow to develop. That's my take on this. So if this goes from back to 50 to 40, that doesn't tell me that, this is just never going to develop. Or the chances of it developing is lower. It's just in the next 7 days. And I can't reiterate this enough. We're going to be tracking this for a while. Say if this becomes a tropical cyclone in the Eastern Caribbean, we're going to be tracking this for a while. For maybe the next 7 to 10 days. And I'll talk about why here in a second. Just bear with me. Now, there's another area of interest right here. Remember, I circled that area a little bit closer to Africa. It has a 20% chance to develop this tropical wave sometime within the next 7 days. And then we got this area right here, still has a 20% chance. Now, I'm trying to catch the next update, guys. This could change. If I had to guess if anything was going to change, I would say they would keep everything about the same out here. But I'll try to go back to this graphic before we're done with the tropics. It always tears my nerves up when they change the information right after I get done publishing the video. It seems like it happens every other video. Let's go over the latest European model, okay? So Euro, GFS, the main two models to look at. We got the Icon Canadian too, but let's go over the Euro from overnight, which obviously I would say is the king of all models historically. So we're going to start it off tomorrow afternoon. I want you to keep your eyes right here, and then watch how this blob of green sort of moves this way in general. Okay, I know this blob of green looks the same as that. You know, this green looks the same as that, but just keep your eyes on this, and you're going to notice something changes with this over time. So I'm going to continue to mention times and everything, and where this tropical wave will be when this tropical wave will be where is what I meant to say. So let's continue to move forward here. We get into Labor Day morning. September the 2nd, not a whole lot of difference here. I mean, we take it all the way, let's just go all the way to Wednesday morning. That tropical mess of just tropical activity, shower and storm activity is right around right here. You see this big blob of green? That's where it's located. Okay, we continue to move into Thursday. It looks a little bit more defined on your graphic now. If you still cannot keep your eyes on it, it's right here. This is our wave. Still very unorganized on the Euro. 5 days from now. Okay? And if you're tuning in from Jamaica, I would say that this would just bring some gusty winds, shower and storm activity. If something like the Euro was exactly what was going to happen, which it's not, then it would just, you guys would not be heavily impacted. Just some rain, some gusty winds. But we're not even close to discussing impacts yet. But we continue to move forward here. We get into Friday. Look, it begins to pop the L off here. And I really think that once this energy gets into the Western Caribbean, that's when we can have really just an atmospheric promoter for strengthening. Okay? And we continue to get into Saturday. All of a sudden, we have 1,001 millibar low tropical storm, what would be Francine, making landfall into the Yucatan Peninsula a week from today. Literally takes a week to go from where it is right now, which is right here, all the way to right here. Okay? So it continues, crosses the Yucatan, does exactly what Beryl does just about. Okay? Crosses the Yucatan, begins to re-strengthen again. And look, now I will say, this is about 7.5, 8 days out. But all of a sudden, it has a wide open Gulf of Mexico to cruise over. And watch how this number begins to drop. 996, 994, 990. And then the very last frame, 10 days from now, this takes us all the way to the evening of September 9th. We have a strengthening hurricane in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico heading right towards the Gulf coastline. Okay, so nothing's changed with that. What about the GFS? The latest GFS, kind of wonky. Okay, so same thing. I want you to watch this blob of green right here. This is a tropical wave, right? We'll keep this moving. Not a whole lot between now and the next few days. We get all the way into Wednesday. You don't see much of anything. Thursday, Friday, there it is right here. It's this area here. Nothing. Jamaica, if the latest model guidance holds true, then Jamaica, I would say you're okay. But we don't know if that's the case, right? But this continues. It starts to get into the Western Caribbean. If you don't know where it is, it's so weak, it's hard for me to even tell. But it's right here. That's where your energy is. Another way to look at this, guys, without nerding out on you too much, is the 500 millibar energy. So this is energy in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. You see this kind of area of yellow, orange, and red? That is your tropical wave. It's right here. So that's how you can really kind of distinguish it from that and then the precipitation outlook. So we go back to the precipitation here. And remember, it's right here. This is next Sunday morning. So 8 days from now. The timing of it's about the same as the Euro, except the Euro is a little bit stronger at this point. That energy gets into the Gulf of Mexico. And of course, we get 10 days out from right now. The September 9th into the 10th. and all of a sudden the L pops off in the Gulf of Mexico. Definitely much further west. Now watch what it does here. Now this is past 10 days out. Begins to strengthen, 1,996 millibar lows. It's a strong tropical storm. Looks like it's heading right towards Brownsville, Texas, right? But then it pumps the brakes here and then starts to head north, rapidly intensify. All of a sudden we have a sub 970 millibar category 2, low end category 3 major hurricane, just sort of cruising north to northeast right off this Texas coastline, and then it makes landfall into the Louisiana coastline. So that's pretty wild stuff, right? Stays weak through the entire Caribbean. You can barely see it. That energy finally gets in the Gulf of Mexico. It starts to show up there, pumps the brakes, goes back northeast, and you would ask, why does it do that? I would say that it's not totally off its rockers here. And the reason I say that is because, hey, if it strengthens in the Western Caribbean, yeah, it's definitely going to slip into the Gulf of Mexico. It might slip into the Gulf of Mexico regardless. It could just plow right into Central America as a weak tropical wave or depression or weak storm. But the reason it could pump the brakes there is because there's a lot of trough and cold fronts showing up for the first half of September in the eastern U.S. What does a cold front do? Well, a cold front would sweep through right here, right, and push whatever tropical system is like this. Okay, and that's exactly kind of what's happening on the GFS. In fact, you keep this going and look how the rest of it just sort of cruises across the southeast. All right, what about the Icon? Icon was pretty aggressive with this developing pretty earlier, right? Well, not anymore. Okay, it just takes this blob of energy, and we get all the way to about 120 hours out. This takes us to the night of September 4th into the morning of September 5th, and you can barely even see where this energy is. It's somewhere right in here. Now, if we flip back and we look at the OOZ icon here, it's much stronger. So that's a pretty substantial drop-off in strength in the shorter term, which makes sense if you compare it with the other model guidance. Now, the OOZ goes all the way a week out and has a strong tropical storm, Category 1 hurricane in the Western Caribbean 1 week from today. And I would almost guarantee you that this would eventually turn north into the Gulf of Mexico if this run was to keep on going. Now, what about the Canadian model? Canadian model still likes the idea of this strengthening into a tropical storm or depression in the shorter term. Sometime in the next few days, we get into Wednesday morning, and then we get into Thursday morning. It would have a strong tropical storm, Category 1 hurricane just south of Jamaica sometime late Wednesday into Thursday morning. And then it strengthens it into a Category 2 hurricane, makes landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula about a week from today, goes over the Yucatan Peninsula, weakens, and then gets into the Gulf of Mexico, where it proceeds to begin to strengthen 10 days from now, 9 to 10 days now, and you have a 985 Category 1 hurricane intensifying in the Gulf of Mexico, kind of like the Euro and the GFS, except just in a different position, right? So that's all the latest operational model run guidance that we have. Now, you know, the 06Z model is running right now, so that might show something a little different, but this is, okay, so we got a new update. This is still the 20% chance. This is the 8 a.m. update. This is now down to a 10% chance. They're thinking the chances of this developing has dropped, and this is still at a 50% chance. So not a whole lot of changes. So that's cool. We got that update in. Now we go over the latest EPS model guidance. Remember, the European ensemble makes up 51 members. And in this case, on weathernerds.org or .com, they throw all the potential members that form on an output for us. So you're going to see a bunch of L's. Don't think there's like several hurricanes. It just throws all the members on the screen. So the members down here are from the main area of interest we were watching. Watch how, you know, they cruise into the Caribbean. You have a lot of weaker members indicating, you know, just a weak tropical wave. We start to get into Wednesday. All right. It starts to spread out a little bit. You notice you got some members pretty far south in the Caribbean, some members, you know, bordering the southern coastline of Hispaniola. A lot of these members do cruise right over Jamaica. A lot of them, though, cruise south, and a few go north. And most of these members stay weak, though. I would say, you know, if I was to zoom in a little bit more, you got a lot of these members that are still over 1,000 millibar low pressure tropical wave, which is still a weaker tropical system. Now, some of them are strong right off the dot. The ones that get stronger in the Eastern Caribbean want to turn north pretty quick. So if you kind of look really closely right here, you got some hurricanes making landfall in Hispaniola, Haiti, the Dominican Republic. But I would say that's an outlier right here. Okay. Now you continue to move. You get about a week out. You get some members are like tropical storm force strength going into the Yucatan. Some of them are cruising down to Belize, down here into Central America. You got a few very strong members, very close to like the Cayman Islands. And you continue to go this and watch how it spreads out here. We're just going to take it. Let's just take it all the way to about the morning. Not this Monday morning, but next Monday morning. That's how long we could potentially be tracking this. And we'll stop it here. Okay, and we can't go out much further anyways. Look at a couple of stragglers out here that are very strong. We don't want to see that because that would probably go, over the Bahamas. But I would say this, guys, and I'm not trying to freak anybody out. If we do get a tropical cyclone that develops in the Caribbean, then it's going to hit somebody. I just don't see it not strengthening. I think the one thing that we watch for is in the shorter term back here, is this wave going to survive its current conditions? Are we going to get any energy that consolidates into a dominant vortice? Okay, but look at the spread here. We got some members cruising into Central America, a few stragglers come up and hitting Cuba and going to Florida and going to the Bahamas. But I would say the mean is right into here, unfortunately, into the Gulf of Mexico. And we got some strong members. And I would imagine once these members get into this area, they're going to do nothing but strengthen because of the very warm body of water of the Gulf of Mexico. It's one of the warmest bodies of water in the entire world this time of the year. And then you look at the latest. Let's see how far we can go out. Let's go on and just go a week out. We'll just get straightforward here. On the GEFS ensemble, remember this makes up 21 members, so you're not going to see as many L's. It's a lot more weird on this. You got a couple members that get very strong right off the dot. And then immediately turn north. Because they get strong, they want to gain latitude, get further north. Therefore, they still hit somebody. I mean, we just because they're not hitting, the U.S. doesn't mean they're not hitting someone. They still would end up impacting, Puerto Rico, and then the Dominican Republic, Hispaniola in general, the Greater Antilles. But they would turn on out to sea, and not sure what they would do after that. But that's an outlier. Most of the members, if they do form it, are kind of just in the Caribbean, right? So the GFS ensemble has been kind of weird with this system. It hasn't been very adamant that something is going to form, but it's something to watch. Latest, and I haven't showed this in a while, but this is the percent chance of a tropical storm developing on the European ensemble between now and just the next 10 days. Remember, we could be tracking this past 10 days. And it says, hey, there's, a 30 to 40% chance we could get a tropical storm that develops right around Jamaica, points east or west. Okay. So I don't show this a lot because it basically changes with every model, but this is the chances of a tropical depression developing. And they really think one will develop a little bit here in the shorter term. And it could, tropical depression could develop as early as the Windward and Leeward Islands. And I know I haven't mentioned you guys much, but as of now, it looks like this is not going to rapidly intensify in time to, I really think, deliver a big time blow to you guys. But that could change. That's why we continue to pump out updates, twice a day, especially when we're tracking something. Now, sea surface temperatures, talk about the environment that could support strengthening. Guys, sea surface temperatures, we don't even have to stay very long on this. This is in Celsius. 30, 31, 32 degrees Celsius is equivalent to the mid to upper 80s in Fahrenheit. So, of course, if this tropical system takes this route, goes right through here, does this, or does that, does this, whatever it may be, whatever it may do, guys. Maybe even goes like this. Regardless, it goes over sea surface temperatures that support maintaining and strengthening of a tropical cyclone. So, warm waters do that. That warm, moist air from the warm surface of the ocean, pumps that moist air into these tropical systems, helps to aid in creating a very moist environment and cocoon for these tropical cyclones. Now, next thing you look at is winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere, 35, 40,000 feet up in the air. Where you're seeing these slashes of blue here, this indicates some higher wind speeds in the upper levels of the atmosphere. If you notice, you got kind of these squiggly lines with arrowheads sort of embedded in them. This is the direction the winds are going in the upper levels of the atmosphere, not the low to mid levels. It could be going a totally different direction, but the upper levels. So what does this all mean, you ask? Well, you continue to move forward here. the tropical system is so weak, it doesn't even really pop off an L here in the Caribbean. But if you kind of get right into here, our tropical system is probably somewhere into here, I would say. Okay, now in the northern hemisphere, winds in the low levels of the atmosphere with this tropical system with low pressure, low to mid levels, winds are rotating like this around this low pressure right here. Now in the upper levels of the atmosphere, in this case, air is being dispersed out, and it's actually going like this. And in this case, it's getting pushed this way, and if you look really close, air is getting pushed out that way. So what does this mean? You would think that, winds going in the opposite direction as the actual low-level circulation cyclonic flow, that would interrupt the flow. Well, it does not, because this is on top of the storm. So what it's actually doing is air is getting pushed out away from that low to mid-level circulation. It's getting pushed away, right? This is allowing more air to rise. That gets pushed away. It's like a continuous cycle. So what does that do? Well, rising air, if you don't know, that allows for convection, shower and storm activity to form and maintain themselves. So what does the shower and storm activity do with these tropical systems? Well, it creates a moist environment for these tropical systems. What does a moist environment do? It allows for a system to strengthen and improve its structure. If these tropical cyclones can get a really good structure, typically when they're at hurricane status, then they can set themselves up for a period of rapid intensification. And of course, that's the final straw. Then we can have these hurricanes that go boom, right? Major hurricane, category 3 or higher. So we look at these things. So in the shorter term all the way maybe in the next week, the system is just going to struggle. I think more so just kind of getting itself together. But I think as we start to get into the Western Caribbean, the atmosphere really becomes favorable for rapid intensification. But, we're speaking pretty far out also. So air is being pushed out away from the system here, but in general, this trough could actually help aid in intensifying the system, but steering it too. Troughs are weird. Cold fronts are odd. Sometimes they can actually help create a better divergent flow, but a lot of times they also eventually can make dry air mix in with this system. But I would say, if this system is going to undergo its first sort of round of a decent intensification, it's going to happen right here in the Western Caribbean. For example, the pattern right here looks very favorable for intensification. A nice for this tropical system, a nice anticyclonic flow right over this system. And it just is what we call a ULAC for short. Upper level anticyclone. And it just basically means you have an anticyclonic flow on top of a cyclonic flow. And like I said, this just helps to aid and push air away from the center of the circulation, allowing for more air to rise. So I hope that makes sense. Now we continue to move forward, get this back off your screen. We talk about steering currents now. A little bit more difficult to explain, but the orange areas on your screen indicates high pressure. And then if you see blue that comes up on your screen, which you will here in a second, this indicates low pressure. Now, if you see really a dulled out kind of orange, like you see right here, or this pink salmon color, this means that, yeah, you got ridging here, but it's still very weak, which tells us there's a lot of weak flow aloft. Now, if you see kind of whites like right in here, this indicates there's not really much in the way of low pressure or high pressure. It's sort of just a weakness in the pattern, which means your steering currents really slow down, and these areas of low pressure can really control themselves a little bit more, especially if they're stronger. So our low pressure is right here. It's so weak that we don't even have an area of blue showing up, but it's right here. It's indicated by this blob of white. So flow around this high pressure is going like this in general. So this is very slowly because it's weak ridging. In fact, the system's almost embedded in kind of weak ridging as in high pressure. It's steering this in general very slowly this way. That's why it takes so long to go across the Caribbean. So we get this back off, and this will continue to be the case. Kind of the weak ridging continues to be anchored over the southwest Atlantic, etc. And this continues, that ridging could strengthen. Okay, this actually could help aid in maybe speeding up our low pressure, which is probably somewhere right in here. This could actually help aid as the flow sort of accelerates around the bottom base of this ridge over the southwest Atlantic. But you keep on going here. Finally, as we get right here, watch this. Watch how all this orange sort of just disappears, or salmon, pink color, whatever color you want to call that. Watch how it just kind of just disappears, right? And unfortunately, the atmosphere and this low pressure, which could be Francine, kind of work in tandem here. And that's not what we want to see. As soon as this system begins to strengthen here in the Western Caribbean, which indicates the more blue showing up here, all of a sudden, we are getting a weakness developing right into here. See the white starting to show up? This is going to allow for the system to sort of begin to turn north because there's no ridge on top of this system kind of pushing this more so like this anymore. That ridge in this area begins to show up, begins to disappear, and then this allows for this to maybe turn into the Gulf of Mexico. Yeah, sure, it could definitely make a landfall in the Yucatan Peninsula and then turn a little bit more. But in general, I think that once this gets into the Western Caribbean, this system will have an opportunity, I would say, to begin to turn north. Now we keep this going. System makes landfall on the Euro, and this is just the European. And look how the orange disappears, and all of a sudden it's replaced with blue up here. You see the blue right up here? This is a trough diving down into the eastern and central U.S. This could influence. If we get a tropical cyclone in the Western Caribbean, and this trough is actually, it looks like it's going to forecast to happen, this will absolutely influence even the strength of the system, but more importantly, the steering of the system. So this would be Francine right here, right? This would start to turn north. I mean, easily turn north. Okay, there's a wide open weakness in this area. There would probably be an environment right here because you have stagnant flow aloft for rapid intensification. Typically, when you don't have a whole lot of flow, a lot of times you don't have a lot of flow in the upper levels of the atmosphere, so therefore you don't have any competing steering currents. There's nothing really that's creating shear for these tropical systems. So this system would have an opportunity to strengthen, no doubt, in the Gulf of Mexico. The only way it would not is if this trough digs aggressively into the Gulf of Mexico, creating a lot of shear. But that's what happens. And the scary thing about it is the trough sort of disappears. This allows this system to be unbothered on the Euro right here. I mean, there is a wide open weakness to the north. Stronger storm systems want to get polar. They want to gain latitude. They want to go further north. So this has just a wide open avenue just to head on north and to strengthen at will. Another thing too is if this ridge right here kind of comes back, this high pressure, steering currents around this ridge too is influencing the track of this. So this could actually steer this to the northeast. So there's a lot to figure out here. And of course, you know, this part's more of just an educational part of when we finally are, if we finally end up if we end up tracking this storm system. I'm showing you this now, so by the time that if we do have a tropical system in the Caribbean, we're already learned up, if you will, on why it would go one way or the other. So hope that makes sense. With all that being said, let's move into what's going to happen today. So weather-wise right now, it's a weird little glitch. Weather-wise right now, we're starting to get, well, I don't know. This looks like radar clutter here. But we're getting some shower activity that's cruising through the Midwest, some storm activity going through areas of New England. We do have rain up here in Quebec. A little bit of activity trying to move out of southern Ontario. We got some activity up here in western Ontario also, and a lot of tropical moisture down here in the western Gulf states like Louisiana, areas of Mississippi. We have to continue to watch to see if this is going to develop. Outside of that, not a whole lot going on. Now, my watches and warnings and advisory screen was not working, so I can't pull that up, but all in all, there's not a whole lot of alerts out there. There is a slight risk of excessive rainfall in the two yellow areas, which means there's a 15% chance of rainfall exceeding flash flooding guidance within 25 miles in a given location. So let's definitely be aware of that, especially living the southern coastline or the coastline of Louisiana and north southeast Texas. And then the chances for severe weather. There's a slight risk for areas of the mid-Atlantic and the Northeast getting into the Alps region. So right through the heart of PA into southern New York, West Virginia, including areas of Maryland, Virginia, even southeast Ohio. There is a Level 2 out of 5 risk of severe weather. A slight risk, marginal risk surrounding that. Level 1 out of 5. Tornado threat below 2%. So I don't think the tornado risk will be a big deal today. But the wind threat certainly could potentially be a big deal. In that yellow area, that's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat is just a 5% risk in this brown area. As far as what's going to happen weather-wise across the southeast today, there's some sporadic to isolated scattered tropical downpours across the state of Florida. We're definitely going to get some storm action in western North Carolina, maybe some storms in eastern North Carolina. We had a lot of weather in North Carolina yesterday. I think we went 2 weeks without rain here in my house in Columbia. So, you know, we're definitely got a dry spell ongoing here in the central South Carolina area. But definitely numerous shower and storm activity is possible in Kentucky, Western Virginia, but just scattered about. Not everybody's going to see it, but if you are vacationing in the mountains, the southern Apps, Tennessee, North Carolina, Virginia, etc., definitely expect some pop-up showers and storms this afternoon that could become widespread by the time that we get into this afternoon, this evening. So the Northeast today, definitely some active weather. A big line of storms could develop. And northwestern PA, western New York State, cruise across the Finger Lakes region could be quite aggressive. So if you're hanging out around that area, be aware of these storms. These will, make it through the central New York State area, eventually getting to the Catskills, the Poconos. These storms could drape all the way down into southern PA, western Maryland, the eastern sections of West Virginia, all the way down to western VA. Storms are possible all the way up into the Adirondacks, Tug Hill Plateau. These will get all the way to Vermont later this evening. They'll probably lose some steam, but these storms could still be packing a punch down here in PA. I have a feeling that, a lot of college football games are potentially going to get messed with this. I think Penn State and West Virginia play today, so that's an area. I don't think it's a neutral site game. I don't think it is. If it is, that would be a shame, right? Penn State, West Virginia have two awesome environments. They have no business making that. I'm not a big fan of neutral site games, anyways, guys. But that game would have an opportunity to be messed with for sure. But you continue to move forward here, and all this stuff will eventually chill out as we get into the overnight hours. But a closer look at PA and surrounding states. Here's what it could look like. This is around 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. It still looks pretty active down here in Maryland, right here where Maryland, West Virginia, and Virginia sort of connect. This could bring some active weather even into the D.C., Baltimore area later tonight. So be aware of that. Definitely some damaging winds with those storms possible. Now down here in the south central U.S., we got to watch this spin. That will continue just to bring a lot of tropical moisture along the southern sections of Louisiana, southeast Texas, kind of just a rinse and repeat type pattern that we've seen over the last several days. This will continue. Cannot rule out some isolated pop-ups up into Arkansas, Oklahoma, southern Missouri, and definitely the entire state of Mississippi or Alabama, and even up into Tennessee. You cannot rule out just some scattered downpours, but not a big deal at all. But this rain down here could become a big deal. I think it'll be really confined to the coastal regions, maybe a few parishes inland. Always got to remember that you guys don't go by counties in Louisiana. It's always a weird mix-up. It's funny, man. I was, doing videos for 2 years before I realized y'all did not have counties in Louisiana. I even visited Louisiana and didn't realize that. So it's pretty wild stuff. But anyways, a lot of tropical downpours for the southern half of Louisiana. Anybody. They could definitely make it all the way into Houston. Definitely points east, but this will continue. Certainly could pick up a lot of rain, and it'll probably do it again tomorrow. Okay, the rest of the weekend. It might do it again Labor Day too. And rainfall between now and the next 48 hours, like I said, confined to the coastline from Houston down to Gulfport or over to Gulfport. A few inches of rain is possible over the next 48 hours. So be aware of that. The north central U.S., there is a marginal risk up here in the UP. Some energy will cruise over Lake Superior. So if you're living in the UP, you could get some thunderstorms later on this evening. I really don't think they're going to be a big deal, though. And it'll probably take a while for them to get there. It'll probably be later this evening. I think most of your day will be fine, but we'll certainly watch. The western U.S., not a whole lot to speak on. Just widespread shower and storm activity is possible across Arizona. Not a big deal. Maybe some spotty downpours across northern Nevada, New Mexico. But all in all, folks, I know I haven't spent a lot of time out west, but it's been pretty quiet. So temperatures, not overly hot anywhere. I mean, unfortunately, in my backyard, it's going to be one of the hottest in the southeast. I think low to mid 90s. But we can handle that. Northeast, nice days, 60s and 70s. Mid-Atlantic, pretty warm in the 80s. Just flat out 80s, some low 90s. I mean, not too bad really across the middle of the country after how hot it's been as of late. And then the western U.S., I mean, it's warm. Don't get me wrong, but it's not. And nobody is well above average out here. The entire country is pretty warm today. I will say that. There's nobody that's really cool today. You're not getting a nice, crisp well, this is your last Saturday of August. I'm always used to this weekend. I'm always used to Labor Day weekend, the Saturday and Labor Day weekend being September 1st or 2nd, but it's still August 31st. But anyways, that's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. Not sure if I'll get a video tonight because I just was given like free tickets to the football game, the Gamecock game. I'm a huge Gamecock fan. So if I do a video, it'll be later this evening. So God bless all y'all. Have a wonderful day, and I'll talk to you again soon.